Well, hello and welcome to The Left Wing. Well, it's not every week that starts with an Ireland win over New Zealand, but that's what we got on Monday morning with that magnificent 29 points to 27 win over the Black Ferns. In the URC, it was a mixed weekend for the provinces. Wins for Connacht and Leinster at home, defeats for Munster and Ulster away. Well, I'm Sinéad Kissane. I'm sitting in for Will Slattery. Luke Fitzgerald and Dave Kelly are here with me. Welcome, lads. Oh, you should be saying welcome to us, Luke, actually.
Oh, no, it's great to be here. No, I think it's great. It's nice to have as many faces as possible. I think, when you think about what the kind of team we have here, and all the knowledge. Well, we think all the knowledge, I suppose. It's great to see a few new faces. So delighted. I think Dave's first time
debut.
apparently.
My debut, yeah. Good to.
Have you been avoiding me, Dave?
To recognise Ternier College's ascent into one of the prime positions in the AIL, recent champions, of course. So there's life outside Blackrock College.
I hadn't heard about it, but it's great. Yeah, so it is there, Dave. You're confirming that.
The C's used to use to the B's. That was how bad things were. Your second team used to be Turnier's third team. That's how bad.
In fairness, there's big numbers in Blackrock playing. In fairness, But no, look, they're still great times. Good crack. Anyway, the school days are. I do miss them a bit. They were good fun.
Yeah, but your career, I think, advanced a bit further than mine. In fairness,
a little bit.
In a certain field.
Yeah. Okay, now that we've got the main topic out of the way. Lads, let's start with Ireland against New Zealand. Undoubtedly the biggest news of the weekend, Dave. It was incredible, wasn't it? I mean, the transformation of this team has been sensational.
Yeah, I mean, it's been extraordinary, particularly given the nadir of not making a World Cup, of being a laughingstock, that so many of their greatest players had to retire and did not see this day. So you kind of think about that, and you think about those low moments, and then you think about the high moments, and then I also remember the high moments that came before those low moments, and then hoping that we never go back there again. And it was kind of almost poignant that it happened at 3:00 in the morning. There was a sense that, and it's very complicated, this whole WXV thing, but they qualified via the Six Nations, so they're at an elite level, whereas a year ago they were playing against Kazakhstan and Colombia and nobody really cared. But there was a sense, there was a fear. I mean, you were covering it all week. There was a fear that they could really get a hosing here, and it could be an embarrassment, humiliation. Now, possibly a lesson as they move forward. They are graduating forward. But, to wake up at kind of like 6:30, 7 and just to see this, see a feed of kind of delight and just happy faces and families in the stand and just a good news story, far apart from the circumstances of the late try and the conversion
dramatic.
Of the post from Dana, and all these, and again, it wasn't backboned by, a hugely experienced cohort. I mean, Dorothy Wall is almost an experienced player. She was the young star. And now it's Aoife Wafer, you know what I mean? And it's Dana O'Brien. Just getting this extraordinary experience and pulling this team through. It was really brilliant. And I mean, it's tried to say it doesn't matter what happens this weekend. You're allowed to say it. It doesn't matter what happens this weekend. They kind of needed that moment for a bit of validation. They'll have a Six Nations. They are playing in the next World Cup. So, that 80 minutes, whatever happens this weekend or the following weekend, they'll have that to carry them through the long winter.
I got up just before 3:00 to watch it, and I have to say, you know what, Luke? I had a feeling. I thought something special could actually happen. I know it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I did. That the way they performed against Australia a few weeks ago was incredible. So, and it was actually quite emotional watching it in the early hours of the morning as well.
Well, that's. I'm delighted to hear that, because I think I've definitely felt a little bit disenchanted with how things have been going there, and finding it hard to support. I've probably, friendly with Greg McWilliams and that, so that was a bit of a tough one. I felt like he was going into a bit of a losing situation there before he even started, and I think structurally we've all had our concerns about how the kind of, obviously we recognise the importance of sevens, from a financing perspective, but obviously, that had made it more challenging for anyone in the 15s role, which really, the sevens is great, but, rugby is still dominated by, the headlines created by the 15s game in both men and women's games. So I had been a little bit disenchanted. It's great to see you weren't, and that you were up. I think it's a big moment for them. You'd hope, you wouldn't want to take complete pressure off them and say, you know, they can throw the 2 games. You'd hope they, you know, put out a good performance and back it up. I think momentum is so important in sports. But certainly this is a moment where you think, okay, well, like Irish people from a sports perspective always punch above their weights. I just believe we're good sports people. We're really passionate about it. There is no reason why the Irish women's rugby team shouldn't be the same. And I hope this is a catalyst for, I think, more interest, more eyeballs, more good performances, and I think hopefully a few more results. I mean, I think it's going to be hard to close the gap between, you know, England and France regularly, but that's got to be the target. We're doing it in the men's game. Irish women have outperformed Irish men in sports nearly across the board. You think of your Katie Taylors, Sonia O'Sullivans, all these great sports people. There's no reason the Irish women's rugby team shouldn't be doing the same, or at least on the same level as the Irish rugby team at the moment, who are obviously number 1. But, you know, I think I'm hoping this is a catalyst, and I think it shows that there's ability there. It shows that there's hunger there, and there's something to build on. Yeah, most importantly.
And they've got players to be crowd pullers as well, Dave, don't they? I mean, you know, talk about the dramatic ending, Erin King scoring that try and Dana with the conversion. But like Aoife Wafer, I don't know how many times I've written about Aoife Wafer. She is just a phenomenon. Like, she really is. Like, 2 tries again.
I think 3 man of the matches in how many games?
The last 2 as well. Yeah, she got it against Australia as well, 2 tries as well.
And I post game, I saw the comments of the New Zealand coach last week. It reminded me of covering the men's team, kind of like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't know the names.
No, just knew Drico. I was like, you know, Drico and the other guy, and they wouldn't know
the second row.
And it was justified. It was justified because they'd like just hand us our asses all the time, you know. And you must remember it. And Paul O'Connell used to say he was embarrassed about it. It took the men over 100 years to beat New Zealand. Ireland were the first one. Ireland women did it first, right. And they're actually 2-1 ahead. They have a winningness. What did the Yanks call it? A winningness record, a winningest record against the
Black Ferns.
But Aoife Wafer, like, I mean, like, she played the full game. I think she had like 10 carries for about 46 meters.
Not bad. Not a bad return.
5 defenders beaten. 1 jackal, I think, scored 2 tries. I think 1 assist, definitely 7 like passes, 9 out of 10 tackles, and you're kind of thinking, what about the missed tackle? But like,
we've got to find something to complain about.
You know, Monday review. But like,
she's 21.
She's 21, and I must admit, I've segued into cover more women's soccer in recent years due to the kind of disengagement. They didn't make a World Cup, and like, sadly, that's what happens, especially in women's sport. You know, you talk about punching above your weight. So few do, sadly, and they almost need to punch above their weight and keep punching, and then start punching down, because it's really, really hard for women's sport to get coverage, and you really have to be doing outstanding work, and you know this as well, Sinead, and you know, it was kind of regrettable, but like, when there was no justification for doing it, it was very tough. So I kind of lost touch with them a little bit, and although still have a personal interest from covering them over the last 10 years. So like, a lot of these players, I haven't seen in person. I don't think I've seen Aoife Wafer.
Well, they felt like a bit of a basket case. You know, when you hear the kind of changing rooms, these kind of sagas, this kind of stuff, you're kind of going, here, hang on, no one's taking this serious. You know, it's hard as a supporter to
take it seriously.
Yeah, but it's very hard to take it seriously, I think, yourself, and get the interest level. So I think, as I said, I think the key word here is catalyst. Let's not let this be, you know, the one kind of result or the one big performance that we get. I think we need to get behind them now, and there's
and it's a World Cup
momentum
next year as well, you know, and you know,
and also to what lies underneath, because like I spoke to Emer Tilly, who played for Ireland a few years ago. She's only 21. She's been involved in the sevens as well, and I would have been very sceptical about how the sevens and 15s dovetails, and I think with the lack of depth we have, lack of numbers, I mean, you just got to put out your best team in the next window. I mean, but I do think, paradoxically, doing so well with the 15s and getting into this competition and getting into the World Cup and doing well in the Six Nations, I think it actually, I don't know if you agree, but I think it cost the Olympic team. I think it cost them a bit of momentum. That's my own opinion. I know they had a couple of major injuries as well at key moments, but I just think, having started off so well in Perth in January, I just think they kind of...
Bavine and Avine.
Yeah, I can understand why it was done, and I just see in terms of how they played at the weekend and with Amy Lee and stuff, that I think you need your best players out there, and even though the skill sets are different and they're entirely different games, and the sevens is more of an Olympic government sponsored gig as opposed to the 15s, which has to be generated from within, and they don't make any money off it. I do think they got to put their best, but.
I think they will be doing that for the coming
though,
year. I think they will be. I think the sevens players will be in the 15s team. As you say, the impact of Amy Lee, Stacey Flood, Erin King, phenomenal.
I think you've got to do that. But then the other problem is, and I see this in women's soccer as well. Okay, that's cool. What's underneath?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the league. The league has been on the last 2 weekends. Nobody cares. I think.
The men are suffering a bit from that as well.
Oh, well,
to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
But at least there's a link.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to Emma Tilly about this. She's with Belvo. Railway did them 47 at the weekend. 47 zip. Now, paradoxically, because they had international players on duty. But the league is not strong enough. And we see this in athletics. Derval talked about it. Derval O'Rourke talked about it in the summer. There's a kind of Dublin weighting. There's a kind of a Leinster weighting, a Leinster focused scene at the moment. And okay, there's a bit of Munster, but they didn't get recognition until really the last kind of couple of years. You got to sort that out. I mean, it has to be. Whether it's regional hubs or whether you make a league that it's kind of like a franchise system, and crucially, you don't follow the men. I'm not saying men are a bad example. Some people might say that, but
template is it?
Don't slavishly follow the male template in everything you do. Yeah, and I mean, this goes into the bigger thing of a women's Lions tour, which I think is just
will that be hard,
cack-handed nonsense.
Will you hard when you see how good the structure? So if you think so, I've grown up kind of talking to my father about say amateur rugby in Ireland. He would have kind of led out as maybe 2 or 3 of the team that were kind of dealing with the union, trying to make the game go professional here. And to see how successful the professional game has been for the men's game, when you think about the resources that we have,
It's not the same.
It's really not. No, so that's fine. That's a question. Sorry, if you're.
I mean, that is my. I could see, but I will argue.
Do you see what I'm saying though? Like, when you look at that, you go, well, look, we have a blueprint that you don't think it's the blueprint. You think it has to be different.
It's a brilliant blueprint for the men, and it has been shown to be such, and that's why the rest of the world envies it. But it's not going to work. The women have to do what suits them. Yeah. And
does that require a rethink at this point, you think?
Well, not a rethink. It's just getting a strategic kind of plan to kind of go, okay, what will work best for our game,
given the resources,
and given the resources, and given the lack of numbers, and given the lack of money. And I mean, there's not a whole pile of money in the men's game either. Okay, it's the international game kind of fuels it really. But it's kind of because this is kind of the last opportunity. I mean, they had the opportunity after the Slam.
It's tricky.
11 years ago. Like, I mean, if you think about 11 years ago, and we're going, oh, isn't this a great moment? You're kind of going, well, 11 years ago you had the opportunity. I mean, again, I look at other sports that have missed opportunities, and especially, I'm not going to call it minority sport, but I mean, it is a minority sport. I mean, you could argue rugby is a minority sport in a global sense.
Oh, definitely.
But in terms of women's rugby, had this opportunity, they messed it up once, arguably twice when they hosted the World Cup up here.
Yeah, that's right.
Messed that up. Don't mess up a third time, guys, girls. I mean, this is the chance. Now they have, good coaching staff. It seems good kind of support structures, and there's respect there. There's respect in the union. Now, showing a few readies is the next step, but the respect, recognition, a lot of this is just about being seen.
But this team is seen. This, from my mind, where this will become really important, you might not see the reverberations of this straight away. This could be, 5-10 years time where someone goes, do you know what, did you see the Irish team beat New Zealand? So that's obviously what we're all hoping. I think is the same thing, is that we get a few more people interested. They go, well, do you know what, those girls, they're successful. And I think the Irish, the men's team definitely got a bit of that, where I think more people are probably interested in the men's game than they've ever been because of that little bit of success. So I think you know, that I'm hoping that feeds down for us and continues to feed the next generation of the men's game. But it should be the same, hopefully, for the women's game. So hopefully, I think that's what we see. But look, overall, brilliant result, and I'm delighted for them. I think it's well deserved. They've had a tough couple of years now, so hopefully this is light at the end of the tunnel, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly feels like kind of a new dawn. So Ireland will play Canada this weekend. That is going to be a pretty tough game for them, actually, because Canada beat France 46-24 at the weekend. So that game against Canada, Ireland's next game in the WXV1, kicks off at 11:45 p.m. Irish time on Saturday night. And I know I've had a few people asking me yesterday, you can watch the games on Rugby Pass TV. So a lot of positivity there, lads. So let's just balance it up and we'll go to Munster, will we?
Oh God.
So Zebre 42, Munster 33. The first time Munster have lost to Zebre. Munster's first defeat to Italian opposition in 11 years. So they led 28-15 at half time. They had the 4-try bonus point wrapped up, and then they lost the second half 27-5. They conceded 4 tries in the second half, 6 in total. Donncha O'Callaghan was not happy in the RTE studio afterwards, and Dave, Munster did have a press conference today, and Dennis Leamy had some pretty interesting stuff to say about those Donncha O'Callaghan comments.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, Dennis spoke about the fact that, like, you know, when he moved, he's from Cashel, obviously. When he moved to Cork in 2000, I think Donncha was one of his kind of his first buddy he kind of had there, you know. So, like, he'd have a lot of respect for him. But he made the point today that he went straight home. Somebody just got onto him, WhatsApp, whatever. Oh, Donncha's really, you know, tearing you apart here, like, on RTE. And so he made a point of actually going home just to watch that. Almost like, I'm not saying he reviewed Donncha before he reviewed the performance, but like, he went back to the hotel and made sure he watched it. And like he said today, he said, yeah, he was on the money. You know, there's nothing. And I mean, you could say, yeah, he would say that, wouldn't he? Because like it was kind of inescapable, like what Donncha said. But
normally it's the other way around with the ex-players. My experience.
Yeah. But
supposed to be a bit loyal or whatever. But
yeah,
that's good. It's accountability.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, Dennis said, "Listen, Donncha's my brother," so there was no sense of like, you know. And I mean, we see all this kind of cartoonish nonsense in a certain other code in a certain other country with certain other Cork people, indeed. But, you know, I just thought that there was a sense of you know, sincerity about, you know, and you know, raw honesty about firstly what Donncha was saying, but also in Leams's response to it today, and just, you know, the sense of hurt, really, you know, and a lot of this, you know, it could be kind of cliched rugby stuff, you know, people getting hurt by stuff, but I mean, it was pretty pathetic, like, you know. And I mean, I know they've had blowouts before. I mean, I remember Dragons, and they went on to win the league that season. But that was when Graham Rowntree first went in. Like, there's no transition here, and they're missing people, but they're like, with their academy, they've over 40 people at the squad. They've professionals there, like they've serious, like aged professionals there who are seasoned pros, and even like to have the game at half time, to have the BP at half time, and then just
look, I think the one caveat I have here, and we kind of mentioned it last week.
No caveats, please.
Well, I'm going to have to, because I think it's the start of the season. So look, I think you know, you're going to be a little bit disjointed. You know, generally my feeling on it is that your defence should be the first thing that you get sorted, but that's probably a negative enough view, and I think it's the easiest thing to get sorted, which is why I always think, you know, you think the first international in November, you know, get your defence sorted. First one in Six Nations, same thing. Start of the season. But it looks to me like it's gone the other way around, and everyone's actually attacking quite well. And maybe I'm wrong. What I would say is, I think that's important. Like, you know, they were leaky last week. I think they're not going to need to get it sorted out. I like that Leamy was out saying, well, look, I don't think Donncha's right. Like, if you think about who the criticism is coming from, he's built up the credibility to be able to do that, because I think it's coming from a good place, which is, I think, why it was well received from Leamy, which I think is a grown-up way of looking at it, because it's difficult to get, we're all doing different jobs. It's difficult to get criticised by someone publicly, but, you know, that's Donncha's job. I think he did it, you know, he told the truth about what he saw. I think there's definitely issues there that need to get resolved quickly. You know, that might be the catalyst that they need. you know, someone externally saying, "Oh, listen, that was unacceptable," and I think it was. Like, I think they're better than what they showed. Too loose.
I think that, but I think all that emotional, you know, working on that, relying on that emotional stuff, like that's amateur time. That's 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And trying to bounce back, and it'll bounce back this week.
It doesn't mean there's still not a place for it though at times, no?
But you need to have it in when you think
in a
about
professional
defensively.
game. Though,
But when you think about
the start of the season,
though,
I don't buy the start of the season stuff. I mean,
I know, but you need to be pitch perfect there. Like, so, like, you can have all the systems that you want. Rugby, in my mind, is still a physical game. It's won and lost in the physical contact, and there has to be some kind of emotion there. I think, and this is where I think you're 100% right, you should still have a standard that you're adhere to with technique and delivery every week. But there's still an emotional component to it. Away from home is important, whether that's a tightness of the team together, feeling like you don't want to let the person down next. You still have to have a component of that. I think over time it gets diminished with professionalism, because you should just have the technique. You're a big, you know, you're a physical specimen because you're training all the time. You should be really organised because you're training all the time and you're watching all the video, etc. But and they're certainly not delivering on that, but you need to have an emotional component to it as well. So this could be the catalyst for them just to get that bit right, because that certainly wasn't right last week. At home, to be conceding that many points against Connacht, thought they got away with one there last week, if we're being completely honest. So room for improvement.
My point would be, like, you know, early in the season, I don't buy that either. Like, I mean, you know, I would argue Leinster's result against Glasgow at the start of last season was more costly than anything they did in terms of going to South Africa, because, like, they lost out by a point. You know, that was.
But you could look at the Ulster ones and say the same thing as well. Yeah, so there's a few there over the course of the season.
You know, so I mean, and it's about habits, and it's about ritual, routine, and you know.
But you don't think they're still betting in at the start of the season, even with professional? I think they are. I know myself. There still takes a bit of time to. You can do all the fitness, all the running that you want, all the pre-season games. It's very different. You know,
listen. I mean, Jack Niebuhr said, like, you know, we're talking about Leinster. I mean, all the guys will probably go back at the weekend, and he sort of said, listen, you know, say Frawls and Gary at the weekend, they were 9 out of 10 in Durban. Like, okay. Is he expecting that in Treviso? No, probably about 6 out of 10. So, okay, and that's the rugby pros point, not the kind of like the you know, the failed tight head prop from 100,000 years ago. So I kind of get that, but I'd just be worried about the catastrophic nature of it. I mean, I mean, you can even, like, Zebra 22 games without a win. You can kind of go, okay, they pull off one, as Dragons did too. Like, I didn't think Dragons was that worrying, because, like, Roundtree had just come in and they were trying to play this jouet to get rid of the whole Johan, kick it up in the air and bore everyone to death kind of stuff. So I didn't mind that. But this one, like, in terms of what happened last year, you know, kind of really fading away, I'd be a bit more worried than you would about it, you know. And, okay, Ospreys aren't.
So what way will they approach it, like, Luke? Do you imagine? Will they just go, okay, just bin it? Like, this wasn't us?
I think you've got to go and watch. Like, so if I was the coach, I'd be watching, and this might be an unusual way to go about it, I'd be watching Connacht and Zebra. And I'd say, lads, is this what we're about? And then I would just crucify a number of people on a number of things and say, right, let's park it now. This is what we're going to work on for the next 4 days before, and we're going to get this right. This group is too good to not get this right. And my sense is that they will get it. They will get it right. I like the coaching staff. I think they're, you know, you miss Snyman, but I think there's a lot of young talent coming in. I think they've still got a bit of a cohort of the senior players. I expect them to get this right. They do need to address it, because it's otherwise, I think Dave is right, this is a big problem. But I see them addressing it. I think Leamy addressing it in the media today is a good thing. Yeah. I think accepting that there's problems is a good thing. But they can fix it. They're all fixable things in my mind.
And they'll have big personalities coming back this week, which, like, you know, went out on the pitch yesterday, today, you know, everyone else knows they're back. Ty and Peter.
Jack, is Jack back?
Well, Ty might be the best player in the competition. Ty might be the best player in the competition, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know who's.
But again, I'd be kind of worried about that it will take kind of, you know, almost like, you know,
the is over.
Them coming back.
Teachers are back. You know what I mean? You know, that's I don't know. I'm a bit more worried about it than you know, some people seem to be, because they dipped last year after, you know,
you don't want to put themselves in this position where they're chasing again. They've had a couple of them, Dave, where I think, like, you don't want to be like the pressure they put themselves under to get those results in the middle of the season towards the end, where they had to go 10 in a row. Like, you don't want to put yourself in those situations. So this is one that this should be the line in the sand for them. To say, right, this doesn't happen again.
They have been here before. I mean, I remember, before they won the league, like they had that. They shipped, remember, it was Sharks, it was a Glasgow
stinker at home, nearly 40, 50 points or something, wasn't it? It was a Munster at home.
100 points as well, which is like this run, but they kind of had a reset and, you know...
This needs to be that moment for them.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Like, I think, they're well capable of getting this sorted, you know, I think. So I'm not worried yet.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 in. Let's not panic yet, but they need to get it right quick.
Yeah, well, they do play Ospreys next Saturday night in Musgrave Park. Let's get on to Leinster. But before we get on to Leinster's win over the Dragons, Luke, there is that story about that Racing are lining up a move for Jack Conan. Rugby Pass reported this yesterday, and our colleague Rory O'Connor had a follow-up on today that the interest seems to be genuine. What do you know?
I haven't heard a huge amount. Haven't talked to Jack yet about it. I wouldn't be in contact with him regularly anyway. But
did you see him moving?
I could. Yeah, I think he should have been playing for a period last season ahead of the brilliant Caelan Doris. Not a go at Caelan Doris, more a reflection of how good Jack Conan was playing last year. And certainly, you know, he's probably. His problem, I suppose, is that Caelan is now seen as purely an 8, you know, and that you lose something if you move him to 6. So really difficult situation he's in. But I just think he's too good to be sitting on the bench. I think he's a brilliant player. I've always loved playing with Jack Conan. And I love watching him. I think he's got great skills. He's very physical. But I've been arguing this about Leinster players for a long time. There's too many guys sitting on benches, you know, kind of happy just to be there. Whereas I think he should be a starter in nearly any team in Europe. He'd be a starter, bar maybe 1 or 2. I think he probably needs to make the move if. If he thinks he's finished with his Irish career. That's his big thing.
Well, really, I think they should get rid of that unwritten rule that you know. That would need to go if somebody like Jack Conan goes. You
know, we had this kind of, existential kind of like horror back in the Sean O'Brien and stuff, and I hated it then. I really there was never going to be a flood of players leaving Ireland. I always thought that was utterly overstated.
They made the exception for Sexton, so there is a template there, Dave, I think, to be flexible. And now might be the time. If you think about the 10 situation now, Dave, like, is there an argument for what you're saying there now?
Well, completely.
In Leinster,
I think it should be. And I think, like, bizarrely, England have brought in this system as well, which I don't get, despite their vast resources. But, like, I just think you should have the freedom, and it's. We've only got 4 teams. We've only got 4 professional teams.
And the different experience those players get from playing abroad, like, you know, I mean...
Exactly. The 10 situation is the one for me in Leinster where I go, if you're not going to move them to the other provinces, where they're clearly, like, they've got in 2 guys from New Zealand, like, where we've got 5 guys now, if you count Tector, sitting in Leinster going, where's my next game coming from?
No, exactly.
There's 3 of them going, I don't know where the next game's coming from. And they're brilliant players.
Well, I kind of think that's a point as well. I mean, you know, we can get all po-faced and professional about it and kind of, what about David Humphreys and what about Leo Cullen? But I want to see these guys play rugby because they're, you know, especially the 10s thing. Now, I like watching Jack Conan, but, you know, I mean, necessarily watching back row breakdown battles doesn't really turn me on. But I love watching out halves play. Like, there are a slew of guys coming out in the back row, less production lines. So I don't think... you wouldn't say Jack Conan won't be missed, but I don't think he should be allowed miss this opportunity. And, you know, in terms of the Ireland thing, if he's not going to be in an Ireland selection,
he's going to be on a bench, Dave, isn't he? Like, because Caelan's now captain.
Yeah, he's
solidified in there.
He's the Lions number 8. He's the Ireland captain now, and probably a Lions captain actually. Well, that's another.
Debate. Yeah,
debate for another day. But I'd love to see Jack go. He's a new dad. Why not go for 2? He's got Stu there. It was a bit up and down last year, the Racing thing. But, you know, listen,
tough start to the season. But I mean, think, like,
you know, I chat to Zeebs, you chat to Simon Zebo. Like, I mean, what a you know, it's a very short gig. Jesus, Luke, you know, right? I mean, what an experience, you know, and especially to have a kid and, you know.
What would your advice be to him, Luke?
Honestly, and I won't make any friends in Leinster here, but I think he should go. Yeah, I think he's a brilliant player. I think he deserves to be playing at the top of the European game. He's got all the quality for it. I think it looks to me like there's kind of been a bit of a selection without a selection, if you know what I mean, in terms of, Doris. Looks like they've decided he's the guy, and I can't blame them for that. He's an unbelievable player, but he's the captain now, so it's going to be even harder to displace him. Unless he was going to one of the other Irish provinces, I think Racing, he'll get paid very well there. He's with a coach who speaks English, which will really help as well. Johnny always said, and that was a way more difficult job for Johnny going over there because he's the general in the team. So if you're not speaking French, it's not your native tongue. Zeebs would have had an easier go over because he's obviously got the natural French, but Sexton had to learn that, said that was a big drawback. I think it's a little bit different if you're playing 8. You can be more of yourself. You don't have to, there's not that pressure to learn the language and be communicating with everyone all the time. You can just do your job and fit in with the team, and as an English speaking coach there. So I'd say it sounds like a great opportunity provided it fits in with what's going on at home. So I'd say go.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Just so going back to the Aviva Stadium Friday night, so Leinster 34, Dragons 6, Luke. Our colleague Rory liked his opening to his match report on Friday night. He had the line that only Leinster can win a game by 6-0 and come away with so many questions. For you, what were those questions from that performance?
Just a little bit disjointed again. I think, a little few ones about the kind of defence, whether it's the right way forward.
It's working.
I don't know. I think it takes a little bit away from their attack. We talked about it last week about, I had a conversation with Ben Teo about it from a rugby league background, but he was talking about they don't try and burn them out in the first couple of the set, the forwards that is. And I think this burns out the forwards a little bit, this style of play. South Africa, you can see, I think, have such depth in their forward pack. Sure, they pick 6 or 7 there if they want, and some of those guys can even play in the backs. They're so good. But I think they recognise what this takes out of their pack, and that's why they've gone to that kind of composition on the bench. It's not because they don't have great, back subs. With Leinster, I just feel it takes a little bit away from what makes them great, and I'd be thinking about dominating possession than just dominating defence. They had an issue defensively. And I think that's why Nienaber was brought in. They thought they needed to sort that out. But I don't know if it's actually... The problem to me doesn't look like it's solved. And I think it might have created another one on the attacking side, which I think was probably the bigger string to the bow, if you're asking me what Leinster's strengths are. So, questions definitely to answer. And again, I would still reiterate, it's early in the season. But yeah, like I think it's a good summation by Rory. I think everyone came away going, well, yeah, they thumped them, but they should thump them. Where do we see, where we're really looking at Leinster is how they go in that group stages of Heineken Cup and the latter end of the season, and we're always assessing them under that guise because we know we'd probably get there just with the depth of squad. So interesting to see how they progress. A lot of work-ons. I will mention before I go, Cian Healy.
Yeah.
What? To have gone through what he's gone through. He's obviously my vintage. We played schools rugby together, and what a great guy. Couldn't speak more highly of him. Completely unique individual, which is great amongst the sport in Ireland, where sometimes you get the same kind of person churned out. What a guy, what an achievement. And I just wanted to say congratulations to him. I think I'm pretty sure from everyone here, to have gone through what he's gone through injury-wise as well. What a career he's had and is still having. So great to see that too.
Lovely words by Devin Toner, actually. I don't know.
Oh, it was great. I saw that. A big hug as well.
Yeah,
two giant men hugging or whatever. It was nice to see, wasn't it? Cian is a guy who often doesn't give away much, but beneath the surface, if you know him well, hard at goals. Yeah. So you could see that came out there. I think it meant a huge amount to him. So.
He reckons it's probably, he said it's probably his last season. Anything about that Leinster performance that you want to?
Just in Cian, Cian does unique. I mean, it's almost a decade now since he was on the Amalfi Coast and had a pen in his hand ready to write his retirement. And I mean, most pros only get to play about 50 games on average. In their career, so it's extraordinary. I mean, I spoke to Jacques Nienaber about this yesterday. I mean, he came in during the season, and kind of didn't
after the World Cup. He
didn't implement. It seemed to me didn't implement a new system. He almost kind of he's implementing it, but within.
Yeah. What was the number, 14 or something games? Doesn't he say?
Within their weekly, he didn't basically. Implant his own way of
tear it up.
Exactly. He kind of fit in right. Where is this the time we do defence? Yeah, we'll do it now. And he kind of, he pushed back on it. I did suggest that listen, your attack has been compromised by your kind of people, and he rode back against that. Had selective stats as they all kind of do. But again, I'm not about stats. I'm about feeling and what you see and what you see, and. I didn't get that sense that Leinster were that attacking
threat they have.
That we know that they are. And interestingly, on the flip side, with Tyler Blandall coming in, and
he was a bit late in as well. You see,
he's a bit late in.
Speaking of that, home recently as well.
Speaking of dads, So he's kind of missed 2 or 3 weeks, which again, rugby, this pre-season, all that's important. You miss 2 weeks of pre-season, anything, whether it's weights or stuff. So, but then you kind of wonder, will it flip now that they'll?
There's kind of a fresh voice coming in after.
Yeah, but will the balance flip too much the other way? So I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I just think, get it back to basics. I mean, just and the Dragons thing, who were kind of like a lot of talk about Dragons, like they're not to lose guys. You know what I mean? They're just Dragons, and like Leinster just couldn't win the bloody ball in the first half. You kind of think back to basics. Yep. Hold on to the ball, win your own ball, secure your own ball, and then that was the key to the great Leinster attacking teams of the last 5-6 years. So. Just a few things to iron out,
Yeah, are we going to see Ciarán Frawley start this weekend away to Benetton? I mean, RG Snyman will wait to see if he will make his Leinster debut. Did we get?
They're all due back.
Yeah, so
all the heavies are back.
Simon looked like he was training to me. He looked like he was running pretty well. And a bit of footage.
Yeah, I mean, hard
to tell.
Well, given how threatening the Dragons were, I'm surprised he didn't turn up last Friday. They probably would have gone with him last Friday, but I mean.
Oh, he was there. He was there watching.
You have to touch a lot of wood when you're talking about him, obviously.
How's he settling in, Luke? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything. No, but look, sure. But you did hear good reports out of Munster. I think that he was a good guy, that he was well liked in the group. You heard, was it Nash kind of was talking? He was giving him a bit of slag and saying that they himself and was it Casey were giving him a bit of stick for going up to Leinster. But look, obviously he wanted to stay in the country. Obviously likes the setup. Leinster seemed to be the only option, bizarrely as enough as it all is, and how he's ended up with Leinster. It's a brilliant bit of business for them. It really adds to what they already have. I'm not sure where he naturally fits in, but I think he'll, like whatever Leinster decide in the composition of what they have in that second row, they're going to have some serious power coming off the belt, or off the bench, in the big games, which I think they felt like they needed. So he fits in to a very strong team, and I think he'll be a great addition. And I think he gives you the little bit of X factor. I think you'll probably get a bit more of that with Leinster. I think Leinster probably have a little bit more about them with the ball in hand, and I think I would say that little offloading ability I think will really help.
There is a scenario that they could have all the heavy hitters out this weekend. You know what I mean? There is.
But it'd be good to see. I think the league is now, to me, you need to win. You need to put yourself in a good position before Christmas. I don't think you want to be putting the pressure on yourself. Obviously Leinster did that and then finished atrociously at the end of the season and put themselves in a very difficult position. But I think you want to put yourself in a good position. I think this league is getting more and more competitive.
Treviso have dipped though. They're not Treviso.
No, they weren't. A couple 4 or 5 years ago. This was a really tough fixture.
Yeah. Even last year, the Treviso have dipped this season. It seems they haven't had a good start.
No. But it'd be good to see the heavy hitters. I'd love to see Frawley get a proper go. I don't know about you guys. I just think he deserves it.
I mean, round 4 against Munster, is coming up at the at Croke Park.
But he needs to play games before those ones, Sinead.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's when he has
to start. I think that's what I kind of thought you're making.
Tyler Blandall said a few weeks ago, there's no hierarchy. Leo, last week, I asked specifically, and I know the 10s is kind of boring, but again, I said I'm turned on by 10s watching them play. So, and it is a live issue. It's back to the days of Ward Campbell when I was a little kid. I mean, people are fascinated by this battles of number 10s. It's like centre forwards in soccer or whatever. And but Leo said last week that he wants to be in a position to place the faith in somebody in a few weeks. So that would have said to me, by Munster, right? Yeah, that's the guy.
And you got to stick with
and he said he was basically going through from
pre-season. Can't be flip-flopping around.
But that's the problem with having the embarrassment of riches, Dave, isn't it? And I think, Sinead, that's to my mind, it's the biggest issue about having too many to pick, is that no one gets a good opportunity at it. And I think, selfishly from an Irish perspective, but also from a Leinster perspective, I just think they need to pick one guy, and I think it's becoming clearer, even though it's unbelievably harsh on Ross Byrne, who's an outstanding player, I will say. But it just looks to me like Kieran has the edge in a few departments that will make a difference, and I just think they've judged him too quickly in the past, playing him, in piecemeal teams that don't have all the internationals out week to week, playing him 2 or 3 games in a row, but then not picking him off the back of a dodgy one. You're going to have dodgy ones. Like, look at Crowley down in Munster and what he's become. He had a few dodgy ones, So, but you need to stick with that person. You need to show some faith and say, well, there's going to be a few sticky ones here and there for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to back you that you'll be able to figure this thing out. And we're going to help you along the way. We're not just going to drop you straight away.
It's also the issue that Leinster have all the best players and they're just, hot-housing them and not playing them. And it's,
they should have been going to other clubs.
Poor old Munster and Ulster and Connacht don't get a
Ulster is the obvious
whip
one.
at all.
Ulster is the obvious one where there's a clear opportunity and they've had to bring someone in from abroad where they probably spent big money on them. Maybe not huge money, but I would have thought there's two brilliant options down in Leinster that would really fit there. So anyway, sorry, I'm going on along. Fire away, Sinead.
No, I mean, I was going to go on.
Speaking of out-halves who've made mistakes early in their career,
he was onto me about these segues earlier, and I tell you, he should be in the presenter's chair. I don't know where you go. Will we go Cathal Ford and him being moved to? Will we go to?
Oh,
Connacht?
are we? Oh, sorry, I thought we were going to the other, the other 10 that
No, we gotta go.
Oh, Cathal Ford is an interesting one.
He used to play there, obviously.
Yeah, and Oani is out with HIA, return to play this weekend. I don't know where Jack Carthy is at the moment. I don't know if there's how much faith there is in him as being kind of medium term for Connacht,
I just assumed there was some kind of injury or something.
Yeah. It'd be interesting.
I love Carty down there. He's been a big player for them.
Yeah, but you've seen Hawkshaw play 10 a lot.
He's very good. Right off the bench.
Oh, he was
Jesus,
brilliant.
what a guy to have on the bench.
Yeah.
Even again that try against Munster. I know we're obviously last week, but the one against Munster.
Yeah, and Cathal can do that. He can play 12 as well. And Bundy's back this week. So what do you do then with Ford? So
it's an exciting backline if they can release them. That back three as well, very exciting, Dave. I'm looking forward to watching Connacht games this year. I think, like Munster, as we saw the week before, they both have issues defensively. Connacht severely so last year. It really cost them. If they can tighten up a little bit there, they will score tries. They'll score tries anyway.
I was talking to Pete Wilkins today. I mean, what they need, and they're going to again, rugby cliches Scarlet's not for the faint-hearted. It is for the Stradey Park used to be a place
I've been on the back of you.
Parky Scarlet is just like a plastic Lego house. There's no fear there at all. Connacht should just be going there, clinical, boring, simple, 80
confident.
Minutes. Okay, maybe a bit of play, but I just worry about the emotional roller coaster stuff. Up and down against Munster, up and down against Sharks. It's brilliant.
They had them last year too, Dave. And I think it knocked the stuffing out of them a bit. Remember they lost the one to Leinster.
They had a terrible season. Ultimately, if you look at it, they had a terrible season by what they would have expected and by their standards last season. Terrible in terms of underperformance. And they cannot go down that road again. Okay, and I think emotion is good. Okay, we talked about it earlier on to start with Munster. Emotion is good and how you use it. But if you're drawing into that too much,
hard to get.
It doesn't get anywhere.
It
doesn't
hard
get
to be
anywhere.
Consistent there.
Especially not to be a champion.
Yeah. Before we go, lads, we're just going to talk about those excerpts from Johnny Sexton's autobiography that came out last weekend.
His latest one.
His latest one, of course, written with
what was
Peter.
That? Michael Gray, was he the Sunderland guy? He wrote about 3 autobiographies.
I don't know. It seems to be the way.
Between him now and Ronan, there were a few wrapped up between them.
Roger 2 as well. Maybe that's it. He had to get level with Rog.
We get 3 now. Yeah, so 2's no good. Go on anyway, Sinead. We'll let you get this question out eventually.
What did you make of those excerpts last weekend, and what he had to say about what was said between himself and Rico Ianni after the World Cup quarter-final last year?
Well, I'm meeting him Thursday, so I'm hoping he's still going to be talking to me, but probably not the approach I'd have taken, but I'm not trying to sell a book. I think, look, it sounds like he's been pretty true to himself, though. He's a very direct guy. I don't think he's afraid of kind of courting controversy if he feels like he's in the right. And I think that's been reflected as how I would probably comment on it, Sinead. I will say, like most people, I'd say pretty dying to read the book now.
Yeah.
There's a P.T. Barnum effect about this as well. Ireland play New Zealand, and then obviously Chicago's coming around again. And it's the latest leg in the rivalry. We were talking about the women earlier. That's a kind of a rivalry which they're superior in at the moment, unlike the men, when it matters. But this is, we have, what was it, Pete and Sam Kane and stuff, and back to the Dublin game after Chicago when, Sam and Malafeka Toa beat the Jesus out of poor old Robbie Henshaw and stuff, and nothing happened. And so like this is.
Can I ask you something? Did you think it was a little bit rich? Sorry. My view. The one thing I didn't mention there was Peter O'Mahony having the kind of back and forth with Sam Cane. That obviously played on the New Zealand guys' minds, I think, a lot coming into that game. Do you think that
He came back.
do you think it was justified for Sexton to kind of have that opinion of the New Zealand team? Even Ioane, do you think it was justified him having that opinion of Ioane when kind of Pete had kind of had a bit of niggle with Sam Cane? That was my one thing about it, where I was a bit like,
I just think it's been true. Like, I mean, enjoy your flight home, enjoy your retirement. You got a flight home now and stuff. And he called him a fake, humble. But also interesting, he said that the Barretts were lovely people. Lovely fellas.
But he said the same about Sevilla as well.
Yeah.
Fairness, said come over. No, so like, look.
I think that's like I read a bit of it, and I mean, I heard my good buddy Peter Riley did a good job on it. No more than yourself and you, Sinead. I've known Johnny since. He came on the scene, and that's his character.
Definitely,
I
one of the good ones, yeah.
And you do know in terms of books or interviews or even TV appearances when somebody is not being somebody. And like, again, there's this phrase which is overblown and overwrought, authentic.
He's incapable of being anything other than he is, I think.
Completely. He is the epitome of authenticity, because like that's just him. And I mean, he got banned for hosing a referee after a Champions Cup. So I mean, and he's nothing if not consistent in terms of all that. So like I love that. And I mean, this is. I kind of we're talking about like the kind of clownish cartoon stuff and on certain other channels in England and certain other sports, but this is kind of real. You know what I mean? Like this was hard. This was like at the end of a pulsating game, and again it was in dispute at the end, the last play and all that kind of stuff. We won't rerun that, but this was kind of honest. True, this is sport at the highest level.
We're dying for that, though. I think if we all been complaining, I don't know about you, though, or Sinead, but I've been complaining for ages about the media manager literally giving you lines before you come to the
media
sorry, it was no good with me because I couldn't remember any of them anyway. But I remember the guy going like, "These are the key teams." I was like, they're going to ask me a question. I'll have a think about it and I'll answer. I'm not going to try and shaft anyone. I'm not going to try and incite any anger in the opposition, but I'll give you an honest answer. So that was always my view on it. Without giving away inside secret, whatever, all that kind of, the usual caveats. But like, I think it's great. I love it. I can't wait to read. I think it's great that we're in the media. We get something, as you say, authentic. And I think it'll be good for the book sales because everyone will want to read this thing now. And I hope that the rest of the book kind of lives up to it. My sense from him is that he's a real smart fella. Like really, you couldn't play the position if you weren't. He's a real bright fella, Johnny. So generally, when he's done, when he said something, he's fiery, but he'll have thought about it and he'll have remembered something, so he doesn't often backtrack. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's because he's generally right. I was going to say something terrible there. But he's generally right.
Yeah.
So that's why he
is like. I mean, it's not. If it was Johnny Nomark, nobody would care. I mean, it's Johnny Sexton who he's operated at the highest level. And I mean, okay, he did get a lot of flack for the we lost but we won stuff. But again, that was just him at that time. And probably in the presence of his family and stuff, and the kind of the Lucas stuff, talking to him.
He was very honest about that. I mean, that was nice to get a view in. I like that bit.
And I mean, okay, it's all, but like I've family and to almost like there's a vulnerability about sharing that, and he wasn't like. I utterly allow people, and I allow people from other sports and who despise rugby and despise the fact that I like rugby as well as other sports, and they would the stuff they would not have said about that and him in terms of that. But I like the fact that he said it, and it was that he almost knew that there would be a response, but he didn't actually know there was.
I thought, do you know what I loved, Dave, as well? The bit I loved about the heartfelt piece.
He wasn't doing it for any reason. He wasn't doing it to evoke any sympathy. He wasn't doing it to evoke any.
It was raw.
Anything for the audience. Exactly. He wasn't.
The bit about Luke as well. He was kind of going like, "How am I going to explain this to my kids after?" I thought that was really raw. That was a moment where, I don't know whether he wrote. I've seen Rog. Remember Rog writing part of his one? He was kind of writing notes on portions audition for an interview he was having in a might have been a couple of months. We were on a flight going somewhere, I don't know where it was, but he was in the middle of writing one of his books. And I'm assuming Johnny was doing the same kind of format where maybe Peter says to him, listen, we're going to be discussing this, this and this.
Yeah.
You know, have your thoughts kind of gathered or have a think about it. I wonder, did he write this straight after? Oh, yeah. Do you think that was my sense of it? Because they're talking about Luke and the kids and that, and he was kind of going, how am I going to explain how the things I've said?
Yeah.
Or the thing, and I just thought that was brilliant. That, you know, you read the Agassi book. Agassi is the one, that's my barometer for a great sports autobiography, I think, or biography.
And again, like there's nothing. Again, we haven't seen it, and I'm looking forward to read it. Like, I'm assuming there'd be nothing apart from obviously like indiscretions about something in a dressing room or whatever, or something in a family, which is not. I don't think there'd be anything withheld. You know, it'll just be. He's
a bit of a monk. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Exactly.
And I mean,
there's nothing for him to say there.
Yeah,
he'd be so interesting to hear his thoughts because he's been at the centre. He's been kind of the nucleus of the thinking of the team for so long, and I think it's hard to get a look in. They're so protective about the setup, but yeah, it should be a great read. I'm glad we talked about it because I think there's some interesting stuff.
He was Joe's man on the pitch and stuff, so he'll have that insight. Yeah, my eldest kid, like, you know, works part time in Duns and Rat Mines, and he sees him wandering. He's just like, you know, he's just a normal kind of fella, you know. Yeah. But
he's like that with all my mates around. But a normal fella, yeah.
But again, the wonder of sport, and you see these wonderful. You know, you saw Rashida during the summer, like these wonderful athletes, and like Roger be the same, and like even Paulie and just Pete. You know, these wonderful sports people. Once they go out there, flip, gone. It's like, who is that person? You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Paul Kimmage has an interview with him coming up on in the Sunday Independent. That should be.
I wonder how much he can give away before. He's probably only looking to give tidbits away without giving the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the way it works. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how that goes. Yeah.
Little by little.
I find it hard to say it nice with Paul, to be honest with you, but given my own experiences with him, but I will say one thing: he'll try and he's a dog with a bone, Kimmage. You know, if he wants something, he won't be happy until he gets it out. So I think Johnny will have a hard time, you know, dancing his way around the talking points that Paul wants to say. You know,
are we done with our talking points?
I think that's it. Great week. Look, I think it's an exciting week ahead.
It is.
You know, I think there's a few teams need to bounce back.
Well, indeed, yeah. Well, I mean, given that it was this was rugby country 2 weeks ago. Did Wardy say? You know, it was pretty. I think the Irish women say rugby at the weekend.
Yeah, they did big time. I think. Yeah.
You know, so it's
been up and down.
It is, yeah, for sure. Okay, Dave, Luke, thank you very much. How did you find that, Dave? First time? Will you be back?
I can't wait for
we have your number.
Another 5 years. Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, all right, good stuff. Just before we go as well, don't forget to follow Indo Sport with Joe Malloy. His new podcast started this week, and he's also got an interview with Paul O'Connell. So get following on that show. But that's it for now. Thanks for listening.